The closer you get to someone, the more they disappear, not slowly, not gradually. Like a switch flips point one day, they are texting you good morning. They are asking about your day. They are saying things that make you feel like this, finally, is something real, and then you do the natural thing. You let them a little more. You open up. You stop playing it cool. You stop pretending you don't care as much as you do, and they vanish. Not completely. That would almost be easier. They go half cold. They take longer to reply. Their messages get shorter. The energy shifts in a way you can't quite name, but you feel it everywhere. In your chest. In the way you reread your last message, wondering what you said wrong. Here's the thing nobody tells you. You didn't do anything wrong, but you also didn't do anything. What just happened to you has a name. It has a mechanism. It has a pattern so predictable that once you see it, you will never be confused by it again. That'll be why the time this video ends, you won't just understand why they pulled away. You'll understand why you kept pulling them back in, and why that made everything worse. Let's talk about what this actually feels like. Because they pulled away doesn't capture it. What it feels like is this: you start replaying every moment from the past week, trying to find the thing you did. The sentence was too much. The need that showed too early. The moment you stop being the version of yourself they seem to want, you start measuring your responses. Taking longer to reply so you don't seem desperate. Saying less so you don't push them further. Becoming smaller so there's less of you to scare them off. And the worst part, you know you're doing it. You can see yourself shrinking in real time. And you do it anyway. Because the alternative feels like losing them. Entirely. Sound familiar? Here's what's actually happening under all of that you're not experiencing rejection. You're experiencing a cycle. One that has almost nothing to do with you, and almost everything to do with them. Most people figure this out too late, after they've twisted themselves into knots trying to fix something that was never theirs to fix in the first place. Here is the tension at the center of all of this. Every human being has two needs that directly contradict each other: the need for connection and the need for autonomy. They want closeness. They also want space. And the problem is, they cannot always have both at the same time. When those two needs collide, something has to give. And what gives for a lot of people is closeness. Not because they don't want you. Not because the feelings weren't real. But because emotional intimacy activates something in them that feels almost indistinguishable from a threat. Psychologists call this attachment anxiety. But that term makes it sound clinical. Makes it sound like a diagnosis. Makes it sound like something that happens to other people. Here's what it actually looks like. They had relationships in their past, not necessarily romantic ones, where getting close to someone meant eventually getting hurt, where love came with conditions, where being seen fully meant being judged, where opening up led to abandonment. Their nervous system learned something from that. It learned closeness is dangerous. When things get real with you, when the connection starts to feel like something they could actually lose, their nervous system fires. It says too much. Back up. Create distance. Protect yourself, and they do. Here's what makes this a trap. The moment they pull back, you move closer. Because you're trying to reassure them. You're trying to recapture what you had. You're trying to prove that nothing has changed. But for someone whose nervous system is already in protection mode, your pursuit confirms their fear. It says, I was right to pull back. Because this person cannot give me space when I need it. And so they pull back further. You move closer again. They pull back again. By the time you understand what's happening, you are both locked in a dance that neither of you chose and neither of you knows how to stop. This is called the pursuer-distancer dynamic. And if you have ever felt addicted to someone who could never quite commit, this is why. Here's what I got wrong about this for a long time. I thought the solution was to become less needy, to want less, to care less, to manufacture enough detachment that they'd finally feel safe enough to stay. That doesn't work. And I'll tell you exactly why. Here's what most relationship advice gets completely backwards. Everyone tells you, give them space. Don't chase. Pull back and they'll come forward. And they will, for a little while. And then the cycle resets. Because giving them space isn't the problem. The problem is why you're giving them space and what you do with yourself while you wait. There's a version of pulling back that is strategic, calculated, performed. It's still about them. You're not actually becoming secure. You're performing security in the hope that it brings them closer. They can feel that. It doesn't work. Here's the revelation. The pull-away cycle doesn't end when they change. It ends when you do, not when you become more detached, when you become more anchored. There's a profound difference between those two things. Detachment says, I don't need this to go a certain way. Anchoredness says, I know who I am regardless of how this goes. When you're detached, your calm is conditional. It exists only as long as they are behaving the way you need them to. The moment they pull back, the detachment collapses and the anxiety floods back in. When you're anchored, your calm is structural. It doesn't depend on what they do next. It doesn't depend on whether they reply in 10 minutes or 2 days. It doesn't depend on whether they choose you. And here's what that changes. When you're anchored, you stop sending the signal that their distance is powerful. You stop confirming their nervous system's belief that closeness is dangerous. Not because you've strategically played it cool, but because you genuinely aren't destabilized. That is a completely different energy. And people, especially avoidant people, feel it immediately. The pursuer-distancer cycle requires two people to keep spinning. The pursuer keeps chasing because their sense of safety depends on the outcome. The distancer keeps fleeing because their sense of safety depends on maintaining control. When the pursuer becomes anchored, not cold, not distant, but genuinely secure in themselves, the dynamic has nothing to feed on. Not roughly. Exactly at this point, the moment you stop needing them to come back in order to feel okay, is the moment they either do come back or you realize you no longer need them to. Both of those outcomes are freedom. Here's what I want you to sit with. Most of the pain in this kind of dynamic doesn't come from the other person. It comes from a chase. It comes from a catastrophizing. It comes from a meaning you assign to every small shift in their energy. Every hour between replies becomes a verdict on your worth. Every short message becomes evidence that you were wrong to trust them. Every cancel plan becomes proof that you always end up alone. You are not just dealing with their avoidance. You are dealing with your own story. The story says, if this person pulls away, it means something terrible about me. That story is the engine of your pain, not them. The work isn't to become someone they can't leave. The work is to become someone you don't abandon, even when someone else does. This is the thing they cannot unsee. This is the shift. Everything else is noise. So here's where you actually start. Not with them, with yourself. The question isn't, how do I make them stop pulling away? The question is, what am I afraid will be true about me if they don't come back? Answer that question honestly. Write it down if you have to. Don't polish it. Don't make it sound noble or self-aware. Just write what you're actually afraid of. Because that fear is the thing running the cycle, not their avoidance. Your fear, and fear, once named directly, loses a significant amount of its power over you. It doesn't disappear, but it stops making your decisions. The second question, and this one is harder, is, does this person actually have the emotional capacity to give you what you're looking for? Not do they want to, nor are their feelings real, nor do you have chemistry. Do they have the capacity? Because a person can be genuinely drawn to you, genuinely not want to hurt you, genuinely feel things they've never felt before, and still not have the internal tools to show up for a relationship. Both things can be true. Falling for someone's potential is not love. It's a project, and projects are exhausting, and they almost never finish the way you imagine them. The third thing, and if you take nothing else from this video, take this. Your nervous system learns safety by experience, not by information. You cannot think your way into security. You cannot listen to enough podcasts or read enough books or understand enough psychology and suddenly feel okay. You become secure by having small, repeated experiences of being okay when you expected not to be, by sitting with discomfort instead of chasing it away, by letting someone's distance mean nothing about you. Once, then again, until your nervous system starts to believe it. That is the work. It is slow. It is not dramatic. It will not make a good Instagram post, but it is the only thing that actually ends the cycle. Here's what's worth asking yourself right now. Think about the relationships in your life, past or present, where you have felt genuinely secure. Not excited, not addicted, secure. What was different in those relationships? What did you do differently? What did they do differently? Because the answer to those questions tells you more about what you actually need than any personality test or attachment style quiz ever will. Point one more thing before you go. If everything in this video resonated, If you recognize yourself in the pursuer, in the anxiety, in the shrinking, there is something deeper worth understanding about why you're drawn to people who can't quite reach you. That pattern didn't start in your last relationship. It started much earlier. And there's a video that goes directly into that, into exactly when and how that pattern forms, and how you actually interrupt it at the root. That's the one to watch next. Go find out when your nervous system first learned that love requires a chase. Because once you know that, you stop chasing. Not because you gave up, because you finally understand what you were really running toward. Subscribe if this hits somewhere it was supposed to. Every week, content designed to make you harder to manipulate and easier to love, starting with yourself. Disclaimer. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health support. If you're struggling with relationship patterns, anxiety, or emotional well-being, please consider speaking with a licensed therapist or counselor.